Hey everyone, welcome to the Modern Government Podcast. In today's episode, Xyz's Director of Strategy and Innovation, Chad Bond, joins the Paving the Way for AI session alongside special guests Sean Thomas, Chief Data Officer at the Department for Business and Trade, Richard Appiah, Head of Data Strategy for the Borders and Migration Group at the Home Office, and Dr. Ravinder Singh Zandu, Head of Digital and Systems at the Cabinet Office. Together, they explore how digitization and legacy modernization play a critical role in enabling AI across government, showing how these efforts can progress in parallel, with early AI pilots helping to shape and strengthen data strategies. So, if you're passionate about digital transformation, AI readiness, and the future of modern government, this is an episode you don't want to miss. You are now listening to the Modern Government Podcast. To start things off, we're diving into what we call the Great Legacy Escape. We've heard a lot about the potential of AI, but as Chad Bond explains, AI can't thrive on creaky legacy systems or shadow IT spreadsheets. Chad, who has worked at the highest levels of government for years, sets the stage for why modernization is now an urgent requirement.
What we talk about in terms of data and legacy is very close to my heart, which is why I'm within Xyz. Xyz is actually Mandarin for ninja, which talks to the fact that we're an SME. We've been delivering services in border security and national security for the last 20 years, very successfully. Our opening gambit really is how we'd frame the Great Legacy Escape as a kind of a campaign to kick off some thoughts from my friends here, and kind of three key points. The first is when we talk about digitalisation and automation and legacy modernisation in government, obviously it's not just an efficiency and a security perspective, but there's also an opportunity, and Paul touched upon in terms of AI in modernising those elements. It's actually now urgent in government from my perspective, and I'd encourage a little bit more pace behind it. I worked on the last SR in I think it was 23, 21, and during that time, investment in government for data and legacy was around £5 and £6 billion respectively. I don't think we've pushed the needle that much further, if we're all frank and candid here, and we have to be there to actually open up that conversation to progress the agenda here. The second point is everyone talks about AI, but actually it can't thrive on some of these creaking legacy systems. Neither can it operate in spreadsheets. And I have to say, whilst we talk about spreadsheets, there are numerous instances in many departments everywhere that still operate either on shadow IT or on spreadsheets. I can say this from real-world scenarios where we've broken that kind of perception, even across classification levels as well, about how you can actually share data. So I commend everything that's been said so far, particularly from Matt, etc. On that point, and the bit about pace, these are big, emotive, thematic areas, but at the same time, we can deal with legacy data and AI in parallel if we start small. And we've got a number of vehicles in which to do so. We run transformation and innovation days, and we can sketch that up in about a day or so. And I don't say this as trying to promote an SME. I say this from an evidential proof point, and we have numerous instances, not just in border security or in national security. I'm just going to have a dance with my panelists in a moment, if that helps the flow. And that's kind of my opening position to have a conversation today.
When people talk about AI, they often talk about models and tools. But inside government, the real constraint is data. How it's collected, how it's shared, and whether it can actually be trusted when decisions matter. Richard Appiah is the Head of Data Strategy for the Borders and Migration Group at the Home Office. He shares a striking example of how siloed data and lack of single versions of the truth can impact everything from ministerial briefings to 2 a.m. safeguarding decisions at the border.
There's something about what a lot of our colleagues have mentioned today around getting the foundations, getting the basics right. And for me, there's some key things that we've got to get right in order to kind of utilize AI to its full potential is around kind of data, around people, and around culture to really kind of get the benefits of this. So I'm Richard Appiah. I worked in the Home Office specifically within the Migration and Borders Group. And Gavin mentioned something earlier around actually we've been now almost a year of this new government. The government has set some clear ambitions or some clear outcomes for the migration and border system. And key things that we need to deliver are all underpinned by kind of having really good quality data. And if you look at the kind of current state and kind of linking into kind of what Chad said, is you'll be surprised that we might get a minister or a senior official who has to present at the Home Affairs Select Committee, for example, and then you get a phone call, 2 minutes, how many, for example, people claimed asylum for X period of time. I might go to 6 different teams who have 6 different spreadsheets and give me 6 different numbers, and I need to give one. Or I've also come from an operational background. Previously, I worked in an operational background for the Home Office, and I might be outside at 2 o'clock in the morning with an individual who might provide harm to the public, or could be a safeguard issue, and I need some information based on good quality data kind of now, but there might be data quality issues. So both those kind of situation scenarios kind of shows that actually where we are now as an organization, actually, to Chad's point is there's still pockets where actually, even within small teams, we are working in silos. Teams are doing some great work, but we can't provide trusted, assured, insightful data management information at real time, real pace. So some of the work that we've started doing is looking at things like data maturity to understand kind of where our data is at the moment. And I think even when you look at data maturity, even when you look at the Home Office, you bring it down a level, look at migration and borders, data maturity is very different even when you bring it down into pockets of different parts of the organization. So that's something that we've got to remember and factor in. So that's kind of one key thing. And then also, if you look at one of the key things that we've been focusing on specifically is around our data literacy in terms of how do we upskill. We kind of want everyone across the kind of Home Office to feel like data is part of their job. It's not an add-on. It's an addition. So whether you're a senior official and you need a dashboard tomorrow, but actually you need to understand where the data is coming from, or whether you're a frontline operational officer or caseworker and you're putting things in the system, you need to understand what data quality looks like. So there's lots of transformation that we have underway within migration and borders to look at actually how then do we get the right set of people. We don't work in silos. We have kind of single versions of the truth to kind of really push forward our kind of data and MI journey. So for me, the conversation around AI, yes, it can be wonderful, but there's some foundational building blocks that we've got to get right. And part of the work that we've been doing across migration and borders is making sure that we have the right accountability to kind of drive these things forward. And I can't remember on a previous panel, there was a conversation around asking for more money and more resources. We are in a position now with the kind of government spend, there is not going to be a lot of money and resources. So it's how do we work more smartly, how do we be more agile, and it's some great work that we're doing, which we can come to a bit later on in terms of how we try to address that.
While some departments struggle with decades of legacy, others are starting fresh. Sean Thomas, the Chief Data Officer at the Department for Business and Trade, explains that being new is an advantage, but it's not an accident. She challenges the guests to think beyond just data and start considering information maturity, taking as much care with qualitative text as we do with quantitative numbers.
So I've got 2 main points for you. First of all, the Department for Business and Trade, I'm the Chief Data Officer there, and there's lots of my colleagues in the room today, so welcome to them all. The department is quite new, and because it's quite new, it doesn't have some of the legacy infrastructure that lots of other departments have. I consider that very lucky because I don't have things to worry about that some of my colleagues here do. But also, that isn't by accident. That's because my teams work really hard to make sure that as we're doing the sexy AI stuff, we're actually thinking about what improvements do we need to make to the infrastructure and how do we justify the funding for the nice new shiny, but also use some of it to improve the stuff that is there that will stand us in good stead for the future, whether that be AI or the next thing that comes along after AI. And that's really important, because if you are in a position where the legacy is so old that it costs more to get off it than you're getting value from it, it's a kind of no-win situation, and I completely agree. How would you ever get to a position where you can afford to move? That's really hard. But a lot of this is the really boring hard work. So I've said this before, and you'll hear me say it probably many more times. Data used to be really clear. It used to be or numbers mainly, some qualitative information that we held in systems, sometimes spreadsheets. I really hate them too, and we are moving away from them, I think, in government generally. But now it's more than that. It's every piece of information that you collect and you hold on your system. And we don't think of quality in the same way for the information as we did for the data. We have those data maturity models, but I've not heard anybody speaking about information maturity models. How can we expect to use LLMs and agentic AI if we're not taking enough care of the information? We're taking better care of our data, but we need to adopt that mindset for the other types of information. I remember thinking of social media content and using qualitative data at a quantitative scale back when I first started scraping Twitter to predict norovirus. I mean, that was 15 years ago. Here we are, where we still haven't really sorted out data quality for qualitative data, and particularly for information. There's a big job to do, and I think the people in this room are the people who can help make sure that people are thinking about, well, what is the data set, and how do you make sure you take out all of the stuff that you know is wrong, so that you get more chance of having success with these new technologies.
Our final guest, Dr. Ravinder Singh Zandu from the Cabinet Office, brings a philosophical but a practical lens to the table. He argues that AI is not a magic wand, it simply amplifies what is already working. For Ravinder, the goal isn't just building smarter tech, but building smarter people and ensuring that today's solutions don't become tomorrow's legacy.
Just from the perspective that AI is not a magic wand which is going to solve all the problems. It's going to amplify what is already working. So we have to take that into account. And second is, with strong digital automation foundation, which we have in our workplace at the moment, and with innovation coming into play, that is the paving the way for AI or adoption of AI in our organization. We have seen automation, we have seen foundation of that, but we have to build and amplify on that. And the other thing is, if we have to think from, it's not to build the smarter tech, but also the smarter people, so that we can build for the goals which we want to achieve. And for doing that, what is the foundation on which we pave the way for AI? The foundation is, of course, as everyone is talking earlier, also data and data at the back, how large data, vast amount of data, variety of data, so many things. And bringing those roles, as in the previous talk, it was data steward, data ownership. Those new roles have to be identified and people made responsible or accountable for that. And so that people can take accounting for that and take specific steps to achieve the goals in the organization. Do we have the data asset register? Do we know? Are we updating it continuously? If we are not doing it, then probably we are in a problem. And that's where all the challenges come, that how we collaborate, how we migrate, how we do this thing, if we don't have the data asset register with us. So those are the things which we need to take care of for paving the way for AI. Whatever we talk, it's new ways of working. Innovation is new ways of working. It doesn't mean that you have to go for the new, shiny, jazzy technologies. It could be the existing technology used in a different way, existing processes in a different way, methodologies, frameworks, whatever it is. You need to think of how we can use it for better, efficient products. And then the last part of it is how I can future-proof my technology. As we are talking of legacy, everyone, today's technology is tomorrow's legacy again. So how can I future-proof that whatever I do today, how I'm going to update it, upgrade it, so that it doesn't become a legacy again, and I will be asking the same question 5 years down the line in the organization again to solve my legacy.
So, if AI is only as good as the data and information behind it, the next challenge becomes obvious. How do you manage expectations, especially at senior levels, when those foundations aren't fully there yet? One of the hardest parts of AI adoption isn't technical at all. It's managing the gap between what leaders want AI to do today and what the organization is realistically capable of delivering right now.
Everyone says, yes, it can be done, but do we have the current, what is your current organization status? Are we having enough information on that? And from that part onwards, that is what is my current capability assessment? If I have done that, and then what is my target operating model, where I want to be? And if I have clear spec in my mind that in 1 year I want to be here, or 3 years I want to be there, 5 years, whatever strategy, roadmap you want to plan, but if you have the current capability assessment of your organization, that this is my current capability, this is how I am going to grow, this is the outcome I want after 5 years, and then you can write down the steps that, yes, this is how I can get my senior stakeholders, yes, it can be done, but you need to take these steps. And in a practical way, in a pragmatic way, so that it doesn't shake the foundation that, yes, oh, it can be done in a day. It's not. Rome is not built in a day. So it is the same thing here. AI will solve the problem if the machine model has learned, data has given it the learning, only then the AI can give the intelligence which you want from it.
It is a real challenge every day, right? Every single day. And I think we don't give enough credence to the governance, particularly ethics in this space. Just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean that you should do it. And I think there's lots of ethics frameworks. I'm sure that every department has ethics frameworks that it prefers to use, but actually some studies in how ethics frameworks have been used in operationalized systems that use AI would be really beneficial, because I don't think that our senior leaders are necessarily going through that process of making sure that ethics is at the heart of decision making about what we're trying to achieve. We hear a lot of proofs of concept. We hear less about things that are operational and are working, and people are checking the underlying bias in the data that is used in that system so that they can go back and correct that in the future. I don't think I've heard an example of that at all. It would be really good to start sharing those things.
And just from my perspective, I think one thing that we've been doing within the migration border system within the Home Office is specifically around data literacy. So recently, we've got a lot of our senior leaders in, and we've kind of hosted like a little data heist to say, actually, if you could utilize AI, but actually this is the data underpins. So give them different scenarios. So actually, these are the consequences of poor data that we'll have, and that really raised their awareness. And another key thing that we've been doing at the moment is we talk about risk management, and effective risk management is not always the best. And it's something that we really spend a bit of time in terms of making sure we've got the right accountable people at the senior level to say, actually, what are you doing to shift the dial or improve in these areas? So one of the key things to get senior leadership is around literacy in terms of what you can and can't do currently, and around making sure we've got the right accountable owners to make sure we've got the right people to kind of support and push forward this.
I'll just add, from my perspective, like I have every empathy for every human in the room in managing senior expectations, particularly from my experiences with PMs around the world. And there's this, their perspective of, can I have it tomorrow, for instance, and that includes AI, that includes data. However, I think how you get that right is a couple of things. First is start small. So spin up a proof of concept. And the second thing is show the thing. It's very hard for those at the top when they have a briefing to understand some quite complex technology. And I think the key thing is they don't really care about the complexity when you go to the depths of certain bits. They just want to show results. So start small, build the thing, show the thing. If you get them involved and then you build a culture and a mindset of that conversation with the seniors. I remember in my experience with pensions, everything needed to go in centres tomorrow, but it was just about having a gradual progression of rollout. Similarly, when we did, from Zaizi's perspective, a data transformation program into serverless, it was working with that senior stakeholder to show how you get it right first, to ensure that they embody the risk mindset of what happens if we don't get some of the foundations correct first. If they're bought in, and from my experience when this has worked, things have gone wrong, but actually it's not hurt anyone in the real world, but it's been a learning experience to show those senior stakeholders, like I say, show the thing, this is what happened if you don't do that.
And underneath systems, data, and governance, there's one final factor that determines whether AI succeeds or fails in practice: the people expected to work with it.
When you're looking at specifically the human element in relation, or lack of human element in relation to AI, the areas that we work in within migration borders, there's people at the end. So a lot of the work that we do is very much focused on actually there is a person that this decision that I'm going to make is going to impact. So a lot of teams is we have where we go back to floor. So I've come from operational background, so I've seen firsthand what it looks like. And we encourage that. We have schemes where we get people to actually see if you come from a policy environment, you might be making policy decisions, but actually what impact does it have on this individual is absolutely key. And I guess finally on the reflections, I think we work in the Home Office, and I'm sure other government departments with so many external providers, and I'm sure you work with DWP, the Home Office. One key thing for me is what's been super helpful is when we work with external providers, what's worked well when you work with other government departments, that sharing. So even internally, we need to get better, but even externally, you've got some insights that might be so key to government. So for me, it's something, how can you get better at sharing those insights that you have with government?
Yeah, as I earlier said in my opening talk, that don't build smarter tech, build smarter people, smarter businesses. So how can we build that, your question to emotional behavior, people, how we can help them, is basically helping them to become more smarter. And human race is such that it can adapt to various things which has come up. COVID has come, jobs has changed. We thought something will happen, that it will be something, but we survived through it. So this is another revolution which is coming up from the industrial revolution to this. So it's basically making the people more smarter, because human in the loop, people have to still train the model, AI, machine learning, all the models. We need people to do that. We need functional knowledge. To teach that functional knowledge to the machine, we need people. And that's where we can help them to see that journey, that you can be that person who can train the machines. And that's how that confidence can be built up.
From my perspective, it's human touch, and that's twofold. The first really is on helping people with the journey in AI. The work we did in Borders with a product called ScanApp, we worked hand in hand and showed them how the thing worked. And actually, it dispelled all myths about it's going to take my job. Actually, what it did is enable them to do their job in literally seconds. And actually, the implication of that was massive efficiency and savings. The other thing is on capability building. I think there's a really big emphasis on trying to diffuse the divide between public and private sector, to what you said about the learning that the private sector can bring. But also, like, I'm beholden on ensuring the legacy that we give over to the civil servants enables them to do their job. So again, in ScanApp, built, delivered, and all the civil servants that are now running that thing have all the knowledge they need on their AI, the data, and everything else to get on with it. I think everyone, if every bit of a contractual arrangement led to that sort of outcome, legacy and improving capability is going to be magnified.
Thanks everyone for listening. Please share this podcast, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you on the next episode.